I appreciate you tuning in. This is JT, and if you are hearing this, you have once again tuned into the Consequence of Habit podcast. This next guest, I'm going to describe him as highly motivated. You know, sometimes to get the best out of us, we got to go through some dark shit, and that's exactly what happened here. This week's guest, his name is Daniel Hurd, and Daniel was introduced to the sport of cycling shortly after attempting suicide for the third time. And after that, there was something about being on a bike that just brought value to his life. It motivated him. It filled some hole that otherwise life wasn't filling. So he decided he was going to start riding across the country, and he was going to bring awareness to just the mental health issues, specifically suicide. And when I say he rode across the country, or he rides across the country, you know, when I first read that, I'm thinking it's a guy on a bike. There's a van behind him, some type of support group. He's got a financial backing, and I would be wrong, or I was wrong. Dan's doing this on his own. He's not doing it on some super light, high-tech bike. He's doing it on a regular mountain bike, and he's carrying a trailer with food and something he sleeps in, he lives in. And all these things have a combined weight of 500 pounds. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to think about that for a moment. Anyone who's ridden a bike before, I'm going to guess you've never pulled anywhere close to 500 pounds. And I'm also going to guess you have probably not done 17,000 miles. Man, if you're not moved by this man's story, then I guess you're dead inside. I don't know. Guys, without further ado, please welcome my next guest. Oh, before we get this thing going, actually, we have a special offer. Dan's offering something pretty special to the Consequence of Habit podcast, and that is going to be it's something called the START program, and it's a learning tool. It's a certification. It's what to do if a loved one is in crisis. Maybe they've called you and they're thinking about ending their own life. I mean, how do you handle that? I don't know. I'll be honest with you, I don't know. But it's a course I'm going to be taking, and I'm doing that through Dan. Through Ride with Dan USA. And he's offering this up to some of the Consequence of Habit listeners. So if this is something you're interested in, please email me at consequenceofhabit@gmail.com, and I will make sure you get the information. This is a $30 value that he is offering up to some of our listeners here. So please reach out to me. If not to me, reach out to Dan. Look him up. I'll have his information in the show notes. I mean, obviously, this is an important subject, specifically in this time and age, where a lot of people out there suffering right now. All right, without any more from me, please welcome Dan Hurd. All right, thanks for tuning in. This is the Consequence of Habit podcast. We are honored to have Daniel Hurd on with us, man. Dan, I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us.
Hey, JT, I appreciate the opportunity, especially hearing your podcast last week with Mason is how I found out about you, and the fact that you responded so quickly. I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, I said this before we got going. Usually I do a bunch of research and I spend some time kind of looking into the guests as much as possible. This was kind of a last minute thing. We were able to agree on this. I mean, it was pretty much yesterday. So I'm excited to jump in this story, man. Dan, tell us what you're doing. Tell us what your goal is, and tell us where you are right now.
Yeah, so where I am right now is I'm in Moab, Utah, just on the outskirts of actual town. But what I'm doing is I'm bicycling the lower 48 states for suicide awareness. I've been doing it for just over 2.5 years, and I've done over 17,000 miles. Currently on state number 43. So I just got a few left to go, but it's the big ones, and I'm hoping to finish in Seattle, Washington by spring of next year.
So I record this in my basement, and I was going downstairs, and my daughter said, "Hey, you're doing a podcast?" I said, I am. She said, "Who's the guest?" I said, I said who you were. I said what you're doing. So he's ridden 17,000 miles so far. And she looks at me and there's this blank stare. She goes, on his bike? Yes, on his bike.
Yeah, a lot of people are, when I tell them that number, or even that I've ridden to 43 states on a bicycle. And what's cool is, I'll tell you in a second, is something that I have attached to me, but, you know, people are just amazed. And some people just can't understand it. They're like, so do you get in a car and then take it to the next town? And I'm like, no, I'm doing this whole thing. If I get a ride, I don't count the miles.
Right.
But so what I'm carrying with me is actually, I built a bicycle camper that I live in, and I tow that behind my bicycle. So my bicycle setup with me on it weighs actually 500 pounds. That's what I pedal every day.
Good God. Good. That is unbelievable. And so I enjoy bike riding, and I used to enjoy it a lot more. Time is been a little tough to get on the trails and do the things I like to do. But with that said, I have no idea how you can ride a bike 17,000 miles carrying that much weight. And I checked your bike out. You know, like I said, I'm a bit of a cyclist, so I like the gear side of things. And I started looking at, well, what are you riding? Because you see these guys like ride across America and they're on some crazy $10,000, 14-pound bicycle. That is not what you're on. Explain to me.
No.
Explain what you're riding. You already said it's 500 pounds. Just tell everybody what you're pedaling 17,000 miles on.
So far, I have a bike called a VSF. It's a TX 400. It's a German bicycle, which weighs probably with all the gear on that. So I have panniers on the front wheel, large panniers on the back. It's got a front handlebar bag that weighs about 140 pounds. And then I got the camper that's attached to that, which weighs about 200 pounds. And it's got my food. It's got my clothes that I need for cold gear. You know, I don't want to wake up in the middle of the night or in the first thing in the morning and have to get out to get my clothes. So it's all here. Mm-hmm. And then my bed, it's a 6-foot length by 2-foot wide, 3-inch foam mattress and insulated. So it's all good stuff. And yeah, it's just a matter, all of it together is about 340 pounds, 345 with all my water and stuff. And then I'm about 155 pounds now, where my last suicide attempt before I started bicycling, I was almost 270.
270. Wow, man. So that's where I want to go with this next. Is what you're doing is not the norm. Like, you are clearly a very driven man on a mission. So let's talk about that. Where does that drive come from? Where are some of the dark places you've been leading up to where you are now?
Yeah, so I as you said in the last one, that it was to be able to do something like this, you have to be really determined, and that determination for me was for finding a reason to live. And that's what started my whole cycling thing. I attempted suicide 3 times. I was planning a 4th attempt when a friend got me on a bicycle. And I didn't ride bicycles. I rode motorcycles before this. So for years of my friend trying to get me on a bicycle, it was a joke almost, because I was like, dude, I'm not getting on a bicycle. I got a motor. Mm. So for me, it was something that just wasn't, I thought I was above cycling, to be honest. I thought I was above the pedaling and all that. So what happened was after my 3rd suicide attempt, I was planning my 4th, and he comes up to me. He's like, dude, I'm not asking you anymore. We're going for a ride. And that ride didn't really change my thought process right away, but it was the 3rd ride we did that really kind of changed my outlook on life. And my outlook on life was pretty tough. Between being a veteran with the PTSD from that, childhood PTSD from being physically, sexually, and mentally abused as a child, drug use and alcohol. And, you know, it's just all those little tiny things that kind of pile up in life. For me, one of my suicide attempts was due to financial struggle. So, you know, I can relate to a lot of other people because of how many different things I've dealt with. But But so we were on this ride, and unfortunately, a lot of people that deal with depression, at least from my experiences, and the thoughts of suicide, is we get kind of stuck living in our pasts or worried about our futures, and we're not really living in the moment. And that's what I was doing. I was definitely financially worried about my future, PTSD wise, worried about my past, and I definitely wasn't living for today.
Yeah.
And we were on the ride. We did 166 miles, and my buddy wouldn't give up. And being in the military, like, I'm not going to leave him behind. I'm not going to leave him and let him finish by himself. I'm just going to push through it. And it was like 40 miles away from the finish. I was just like, dude, we've done all these miles. We got all this left to go. I just don't know if I can do this anymore. And he straight up looked at me. We stopped our bikes, and he looked at me and he goes, it's left, right, left, right. It's one pedal at a time. Just think about that. Mm-hmm. And so literally I did cadence in my head for the last 40 miles. We got to the finish, and that's what changed my life. And now I own a nonprofit called the One Pedal at a Time movement. My mantra for Ride with Dan USA is the one pedal at a time. And that's literally how I think about this journey. If I thought about it overall as all 48 states and every mountain range and all those things, I probably wouldn't do it. But the fact that I just say it's one pedal, as long as I make it one pedal, I made it through the day. And that's the mindset I have to keep this going strong. And
yeah.
So my cycling started, and that was in July of 2017, and I left in March of 2018 on this journey.
Mm. Yeah, I'm actually really excited to hear you're a veteran also. It's just the direction it's one of the directions I really want to start heading and talking to other veterans that are dealing with PTSD, mental illness, addiction, because all those things are all wrapped up, and it's getting attention, but I think it needs more. So I didn't know you were a veteran. I say thank you for your service. I'm a fellow veteran. And we talked a little bit right before this started that you've been sober now for how long?
So 8 years for alcohol will be in November, and then I'm actually just hitting 4 years for all other drugs.
Mm. Did your mental illness, did your addiction, did all these things, were they problems before the military? Or is this something that the military you had before, the military amplified it? Like what was your journey with that?
So for me, I definitely dealt with it before the military. It was bad, but I think it got worse after the military. I had my first suicide attempt, which wasn't recorded, so I could still join the military.
Yeah.
I honestly joined the military. I was hoping to be a Marine. I was overweight then too, so they wouldn't let me join. And I went next door, and the Navy was like, "Yeah, we'll make it happen."
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was never really depressed. I worked a lot, but I wasn't really depressed. I drank a lot, so that's probably where my depression kind of went to instead. Uh-huh. But I never thought of suicide. I never had those issues while I was in service. It was after I got out, trying to find like a place to fit in for work and living, and I ended up just drinking myself into a slumber for over a year, and then I moved back to Massachusetts, and that's where my other issues from childhood and being around the people I grew up with that unfortunately have passed from doing drugs or got me back into doing drugs, and so I put myself back into a bad situation, and it just amplified because of all the other issues that I had from the training and being in the military and having like that familyhood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an identity, right? Like it's this, I certainly didn't realize it at the time. I found a lot of I would be negative about it, and I'm like, I don't want to be around these people. But when you're struggling and all of a sudden you're not in anymore and you're not expected to be anywhere, you don't have the people in the same barracks or wherever you are, like just to kind of lean on a little bit, man, you feel alone. And, I mean, I don't know if that's a feeling you relate with when you got out or not.
Oh, absolutely. I definitely feel alone. And that's actually, so what inspired my 48 state journey was, so after I started riding, I was in my therapy session, and my therapist was talking to me about like the positive times of my life, which the military for me, the people I served with were in a lot of ways more of family to me than my own real family.
Mm.
So, you know, for me, we were talking, and he's like, man, it sounds like you need to go visit some of your friends.
Yeah.
And 2 days later, my buddy that got me into riding was like, man, when I was your age, I wanted to bike across the country. Which light bulbs started going off in my head. I literally mapped out where the people I have kept in touch with or people that I've served with, and mapped out where they lived. And they lived in 35 states at the time. And so to get to those 35 states, I had to do 42. And so what's the extra 6 at that point, right?
Right. 6 states.
So that's what actually inspired this journey was me reconnecting with the people my family that I served with, and even still like along this way. And by the way, thank you for your service as well. And I didn't know that about you either. So that's awesome to know. And I feel like immediately knowing that somebody else that you're talking to is a veteran, or that you have a conversation with, immediately you feel like your brothers, even if you didn't actually serve together type thing.
Yeah, agreed.
So, and that's something that I've, you know, I started this journey to see my brothers and sisters that I served with. But I've gotten more brothers and sisters along the way because of other people that have served that I've gotten connections with. So it's been really amazing in the sense of the veteran side, but even just as regular people, like I'm doing my entire journey with no savings. I wanted to prove to myself and to people, unfortunately, a large number of suicides are due to daily and financial struggles. So, including mine. So I wanted to show people that we could survive, and I wanted to prove to myself that there was still a lot of good people in this world that are willing to help, even if they don't know your whole story. And so that's actually how I portray this journey. And you know, bicycling this journey is a form of life. You know, it has ups, it's downs, it's flat, it's high winds where, you know, today you thought it was going to be an easy day, but the wind's blowing in your face. So, all those things kind of can be related to somebody else's own journey in their own life and aspect. And so showing somebody that, hey, even if today's, you know, you're broke today, doesn't mean you will be forever. You know, you guys got to make it through today, and tomorrow's a new day. And for instance, coming into Moab, I had $12 yesterday morning. Wasn't sure where I was going to camp, where my day was going to end. I ended up meeting a lot of people that stopped me along the way, and just wanted to see my camper and check out what I was doing. And so they, thankfully, I got some donations through all them, and I ended up finding a spot in some BLM land, and meeting some cool people out here as well that are doing the same thing in various different vehicles and other things. So,
gee, that is absolutely wild. You know, when you mentioned just going left, right, kind of living in the moment. I mean, that's just something that translates across all kinds of different things. You know, when we talk about sobriety like that, I mean, sounds like you've heard the talks or been in the rooms and know that thing. Like, man, sometimes it's not about getting through, you know, the next year or week or month. It's just like, I just got to get through the next couple of minutes. Because if you think about, you know, you're thinking about what's ahead of you, it can seem just really, really daunting and too hard and very easy to give up on. And that's his life. I mean, for you, it's obviously pedaling a bike, which anyone who's ridden a bike any distance whatsoever is going to be absolutely blown away by what you're accomplishing. And like you said, you've got these days where you think things are going to go good and they don't. I've been watching some of your videos, and you're dealing with a lot of flat tires, right? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so I've had a lot of flat tires on my journey, but most recently, I'm sure the one that you saw was in Utah, just north of Salt Lake City. I had 11 flat tires with 18 punctures in less than 2 days. And it wasn't anything it wasn't because I was riding in like debris or anything like that. It was these little tiny, they're huge here. The goat heads, the thorns.
Uh-huh.
I have puncture resistant tires, but I didn't have puncture resistant tubes, and I didn't have slime in them. So it was a mess. And at one point I ran out of patches, so I couldn't fix my bike anymore. And it was just a lot of stress in the moment. But something that I encourage people to do is, if you're stressed out or if you're having a tough time, is to tell people about it. Tell people, and and even if there's nobody that can actually physically or financially help you, at least you got it out there, and somebody maybe can give you a resource or whatever it is. So I try to follow that. And so I told people, I was like, hey guys, like, this happened. I need to get some tires. And thankfully within like 15, 20 minutes, I had enough money to get some spare tubes, some new tires, and some puncture resistant stuff so that I can protect it. And thankfully I've only had one flat tire since then.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was watching this video, and you saying that everything weighs 500 pounds actually brings this thing to a whole new level, because you were walking your bike, and you're to walk a bike that weighs 500 pounds. And I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's happened. I just feel like at some point you just had to like kind of break down and I don't know, cry, try to say, what the hell am I doing? How did I get, have you questioned anything, or is your resolve in what you're doing been so strong along the way that it's just never been a question?
So definitely I questioned myself a lot at the beginning of the journey. There was a lot of doubts that I was even doing what I was supposed to and all these things. But I think anybody that goes on any extended tour, either in a van or a vehicle or a bicycle or a walk, at some point you kind of question like what you're doing, even if it's exactly what you're supposed to be doing. I had a lot of struggles at the beginning, more so than I do now. Something that I was thankful on this journey was I found faith in Christ for me. So for that, that's given me a lot of relaxation in those stressful moments, because I just kind of think that it'll be provided when in the moments I need it the most. But that wasn't always the case. And what actually keeps me really going now is the fact that I've done almost 80 suicide interventions on my journey.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. So you're being contacted by people while you're on this journey, correct?
Yeah, so it's a mix of things. It's actually the first person. I tell this story a lot. I tell it a lot on a lot of my podcasts and stuff, but it's that meaningful to me, and I didn't really appreciate it until later on. So I was in New Hampshire. I was crossing over a bridge, and about a half mile after I crossed the bridge, there's a woman walking down the street, and my thing was I had to tell people what I was doing to keep myself accountable for what I was doing on my journey. She says hello to me. So I immediately turn around. I'm like, here's my card. I'm running for suicide awareness. I'm doing all 48 states, but I got to keep going, because at the beginning of my journey, I was more like trying to stick to my schedule and be where I was supposed to be. And I quickly learned that it is what it is, and I'm going to make it where I'm supposed to.
Yeah.
So, but it wasn't that case on this day. And this woman, was like, oh my God, that's awesome. And I left. We were talking for maybe 2 minutes tops. A few days later, I get an email, and she had messaged me because she was planning to jump off that bridge that day. And she didn't, because of our interaction, as small as it was. She ended up going to the hospital for 3 days. And then when she got out, she emailed me through the card that I gave her. So as much as that wasn't a per se real intervention, that was my first intervention.
Dan, I'm going to tell you this, man. I have chills right now. That is unbelievable. And it really shows you have no idea the impact that you can have on somebody. Like here you are, you're just staying this course. And I'm going to guess this is just as much for you as it is for anybody else. Yet what you're doing has literally saved lives.
Yeah.
That blows me away, man.
No, it's actually just thinking about it makes me emotional. It's amazing.
Dude, you and me both. You and me both.
But yeah, you know, it's interactions like that, and the fact that I've had so many of them. Quite a few of them were crossing paths with them in person, or you know, just passing by and being like, "Yeah, I'm riding for suicide awareness." Like, "Oh my God, how'd you know I was going to kill myself today?"
Wow. And
do an intervention in the process. And over time, I got actually, unfortunately, I got really good at doing interventions. I'm actually assist certified through an organization called Living Works, which is also the organization where I get my START programs from. So, which is a online course that people can check out from my program.
Yeah, let's talk about that real quick, if you don't mind, because I'm excited to announce, and this will be in the intro, that Dan was kind enough to offer 5 free. I'm going to let you explain it because I feel like I might just butcher it. So if you could go ahead and explain what the program is and what this giveaway is going to look like.
Yeah, so the START program is a program that's online. It's a 60 to 90 minute course. You get about 30 days from the sign up to take the course. If you can't finish it right away, you know, with the life that we're living now, as you know, a kid could come down, need help with homework, whatever it is. You got a surprise thing that shows up the door. You got to take care of. You can stop the program and get back into it, and you can review it again and get a lot of information. But what it does is it's a 4-piece interactive program where they have you deal with 4 different scenarios of people that are thinking about the thoughts of suicide, maybe not actually on the verge of suicide, but thoughts, and then other people that are maybe considering it in even further depth. But it goes through and teaches you how to handle a situation like that and how to ask that hard but simple question: are you thinking about suicide? So what we would like to do is give away 5 through this podcast, and it's like I said, it's typically a $30 program. Right now they're doing it for $20. If you want to check it out, it's start.opatmovement.com, OPAAT movement.com. And then they can see more about the program itself. But we'd love to give 5 away for everybody on here that's listening.
Yeah, that would be huge. And I know, like you said, especially this what we're going through now. You know, I've talked about in the podcast, and it is just this overall sense of just fear and uncertainty, and even I'll tell you what, your message of just one pedal at a time, because that's what we got to do right now, man. If you're worrying about too much about the future, good God, man, it's not a great prospect. So I appreciate you offering that, and that is something I think is we're definitely going to get a lot of response from. Hey, do you think that you've gone through everything you had, whether your childhood, everything leading up to bring you to where you are right now?
Yeah. So nowadays, I believe that everything I went through, I had to be able to connect with more people, to relate to them. I don't think that for a long time I was resentful of it. I didn't think it was something that nobody should go through anyways, but I don't use them as I don't look at them as much of a burden anymore, as more of a source of light for other people to see that, you know, we can still survive and we can still do good things in this world, even if we've had bad things or we've done bad things.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, you know, have you found peace in yourself on these rides? And if so, do you worry when the rides aren't over that it's something you're always going to be seeking?
So cycling is definitely my Zen activity. It's that thing that I need in my life. I don't know if I don't per se know if I'll have to always go like state by state or cross country or just keep moving type thing, but cycling is definitely going to have to stay part of my life in one form or another. because, for instance, during COVID, when COVID first started, I was in Texas, in West Texas. And it was kind of one of those moments where I decided to go to my nonprofit's based out of Alabama. So I went there and spent 12 weeks working on my nonprofit, but not riding a bicycle very much. Mm-hmm. And I gained about 40 pounds. I started feeling a little bit more depressed, to the point where I was like, I got to go. I got to get back on the bike. At this point, I'm tired of waiting. Yeah. So it was definitely, it was a realization for me that I got to keep going, or I got to figure out a way to keep around on a bike and make no excuse not to be on my bicycle at some point. I tell everybody I'm addicted to cycling. It's not looked at as a bad addiction, but it's still an addiction.
Yeah. I get it, man. Like the title of this, The Consequence of Habit. Well, there's good consequences too. You can be addicted to cycling, and the consequences of that are, I don't know, fitness. It's like a therapy, right? If you're escaping into something that's positive, and along the way, you're spreading a positive message. And I mean, I know I'm not telling you anything that you don't know, but the suicide, it's like an ugly thing that a lot of people don't like talking about, right? It's not an easy conversation. I don't know, say introduced. I had a close family member when I was very young. I was maybe 11 years old, and it was a neighbor's daughter, and she was an Air Force Academy graduate, and it just seemed like had everything together. And she unfortunately committed suicide. And I remember just the sense of confusion. I never knew anybody that had done something like that, and it was never talked about. And it's something that needs to be to really be brought out of the shadows and discussed. Do you find that things are changing now? There's more of a willingness to discuss the issue of it?
I think it's every day it gets a little bit better. I think we still have a lot of progress to go. But for instance, like me, the way I'm doing, I talk about it in such a casual way nowadays, which wasn't always the case. Like, something this journey also did for me was get comfortable telling my story. And I think that's something that we all we all have a story, regardless if it's if we've ever had the thoughts of mental health issues or suicide. But we all have a story to tell. And I think that something that we don't do enough of is tell our stories. We show the good stuff, but we don't show the stuff or the struggles that we had to get to that good stuff. So I try to show that stuff along the way, and I encourage other people to do the same, and that's something I've seen actually a lot. Last month being Suicide Awareness Month, and continuing into this month, I've seen a lot of people that, some of them I knew that have struggled with suicide, others that I had no idea that have dealt with depression or suicide, sharing their story finally and encouraging other people to share theirs. And I think that us sharing our stories really gives other people that have never dealt with it. If we can talk about it in a pretty semi-casual conversation, we can actually encourage people to be more willing to listen. And that's something I've seen a lot of on this journey. And in particular, with one particular woman, and I was in Florida. She saw my bicycle and was interested in the bicycle. And so we started talking about what I was doing in suicide awareness. And she's like, well, I don't think I've ever known anybody, or something to that effect. She left. She went back to Arkansas and ended up thinking about some people that she may have known or thought that she knew that may have done it. And then instead of just leaving it at that, she realized that she knew, like, I think it was 6 people that had committed suicide in her life. And then what she decided to do was get more involved in her community on how can we get more people to prevent suicide. Yeah. And that was nothing that she planned on ever doing before that.
Yeah, that's cool. Just even getting people that don't even realize that they've been affected by involved in it. If there's one stigma about suicide that you could change, what would that be?
Well, the biggest stigma that I would love to change is just to have that conversation, asking the question. If you know somebody that you know has been depressed or having issues, and ask them about if they're thinking about suicide. So many people still think that if they ask somebody that they're going to think about, if they're thinking about suicide, that if they're not, they're going to put that idea in their head. And if they are thinking about it, they're going to try to deny it or act on it faster because you brought it up, which none of those are accurate. If you're asking somebody that isn't suicidal if they're suicidal, you're showing that person that you care about them, and it gives them a reason to continue on, even if that isn't the only reason. So it's important to be willing to have that conversation, ask that question, but also the other thing that we deal with is, when we first got on, I said, "Hey, how are you?" And, a lot of people, we do that as a culture now. "Hey, how are you?" is just hello in a lot of ways. We're not asking to ask how somebody's doing because we only want to hear a simple answer. So a lot of it comes out doing okay, or today's good, or, in those other cases, bad things are going on, but nobody's there to listen.
Yeah.
So, just being willing to listen to somebody and having a conversation, even if you don't agree with suicide or if you don't understand mental health or suicide, just being willing to understand them and learn from what they're saying can really change the impact of somebody's day and ultimately save their life just by having that conversation. And so I encourage conversations. If you're struggling with it, talk about it. If you're not struggling or anything like that, be willing to listen.
Yeah. Just to shift gears a little bit, man, let's talk about the actual journey itself. What's probably one of the craziest things that's happened to you along your journey so far?
Well, so like I said, I was listening to your podcast last week with Mason, and he was talking about how he got hit.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've had 4 hit and runs on my journey.
What?
Yeah, in my own home state of Massachusetts on my first week on tour, which was physically the worst one for me. I got beat up on my shoulder and my hip and knee, and pretty sure I got knocked out unconscious for a few minutes. And yeah, there was nobody there when I woke up or came to. And then I got hit again in New York. I got hit in South Carolina and again in Florida. Florida being the worst of my hits, but not affecting me per se. I got thrown into the grass, thankfully, on the side of the road. But it broke pretty much my rear end of my bike off. It shattered my rear wheel. It put a lot of damage on the bike. Thankfully, got it welded. I'm a machinist and a welder by trade, so I got it fixed and kept going. But it's probably, those were pretty intense times for me for that. But I've had probably even more than a dozen close calls as well. It's a few people, it almost seems like they're either fully distracted by their phone and go into the side of the road, or that they're purposely trying to hit me.
Yeah.
One or the other.
Yeah, that scares.
So it's a.
I'm sorry, cut you off. Go ahead.
No, I was about to say it's a scary thing at those times, but I'm thankful that I haven't had many accidents since the East Coast. So that says a lot about where I'm from, and the East Coast drivers.
Yeah.
But it's different out here. Like I said, in the Midwest and everywhere else I've been, I've had a lot of close calls, but thankfully nobody's actually hit me. Most recent crash that I've had, I was coming off the Continental Divide, my own accident. I was doing 43 miles an hour with my my bike and trailer, and got hit with a crosswind so hard it threw me into the pavement, tore me up, and dealt with some equipment damage and stuff like that. And super thankful that I got a lot of support from my followers, and they made sure I got my stuff replaced real quick as soon as I got to the next town. And then I was fortunate to get a new watch given to me, so that was awesome from Garmin. And that was all. Yeah, there's a bunch of things that that have happened, but overall, it's been an amazing journey. And it's great because I get to see a lot and do a lot of different things that I never expected to do or I planned to do. And from being at a powwow as a VIB guest at a powwow to being invited as a VIB guest to Brett Michaels' concert for Veterans Day.
Yes.
To go into last year, I went to the Big 12 Division Championship game, so that was awesome. So I get to do a lot of awesome things, and it's cool because I don't expect any of it, and I just think that I'm going to make it somewhere and just check it out and keep going. And you never know what tomorrow's going to bring, and that's what's so powerful about this journey and showing people that. And I never know what I'm going to do tomorrow. People ask me, where are you going to be next week or next month, or when are you going to get to San Diego where I was stationed? So a lot of people are excited for when I get there. And honestly, I have no idea. I'm hoping I'll be there before Christmas, but something might come up down the road that's like, hey, check this out, hang out for a week. So I might be there later. Who knows? And that's what's cool about it, and showing people how powerful not just this journey is, but how powerful every day can be if you're just willing to make it through today and get to tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely an adventure, man. I can see why you're on the Adventure Sport podcast, man, because dude, when everything's said and done and you're sitting back and you're thinking about, man, your life and where you've come, and dude, this journey you're on, that is a true adventure. That's something you don't see very often. You'll see people that ride across the country, and like I said, they usually have a support van behind them. They have a financial backing before they even start. You are living life in the moment as much as you possibly can. And to 99.9% of us, that is a scary prospect. So kudos to you to doing that, man. And I'll tell you what, I'm envious of the experiences you're having. And I know when this journey's done, that you are going to have some really amazing experiences and some really cool stories to pass on to other people.
Oh yeah, I'm not much of a book writer, but I'm hoping that I'll be able to either narrate a book or something to that effect, so somebody can tell my story. Because and who knows, by the time I'm done, maybe I'll be more confident in my own writing ability. But it's definitely something that I'm excited to share with people and sharing it throughout the day. That's why I do it on my social media and on YouTube and everything else.
Hey, if you don't mind talking about it, you mentioned faith before this. I imagine for a lot of people that come from a really tough background, that have lived through some hard things, hard enough where they really just wanted to end things. How do you reckon that? Like, how do you, what was your spiritual process, and how did you come to where you are now after dealing with so many hard things earlier in your life?
So I call it a 3-step faith process.
Okay.
So I couldn't find faith in God or in a higher power before I found faith in 2 other things. And there was no way for me for a long time. I couldn't have faith in a spiritual father in that sense, because of my physical fathers that I've dealt with. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, how can I not trust them, and how can I trust that guy? And I've never even seen him. Yeah. And that was my thought process for a long time on that. And, so what happened was that, I think, having a lack of faith in yourself, is definitely, degrading for yourself. And that's what a lot of us deal with, is we have a lack of faith that we can make it through the next day. Or we have a lack of faith in that, what happened to us wasn't our fault, and whatever it is, per se. But I had to find faith in myself before I could even do anything else. I had to believe that I could do this journey. I had to believe that that there was more me than what I was dealing with back there at home. And then I found faith in humanity. You know, it's hard to have trust in something that you don't have if you can't trust your community and the people around you. So I found faith in community. I found faith in people. Something that I really people left in the world because of the media that we see is so negative that, you know, over time you start to believe that at some point, in a sense. So when I found faith in humanity, it led me in a higher power. And it really, when I accepted Christ into my life, I was in Ohio, and it wasn't something I planned on doing. It was just I lose you.
I think you're back.
Okay.
So I'll let you, if you could, man, just pick up. I think you were, you mentioned Ohio, and that's when you started cutting out.
Okay. So yeah, I was in Ohio, and, you know, it was not expected. It was something that I didn't really plan on doing. Typically before that, if someone asked me if I was a believer of Christ or if I was willing to accept him, you know, my generic answer was, I believe Christ was a real person, but just not the higher power I need. And that was usually my answer. But for whatever reason in Ohio, I got asked that question, and before I could say no, yes came out of my mouth. So we did the acceptance prayer, and it was literally like a burden of this weight that I was carrying was like taken away from me. And it was literally that fast because, I got, after doing the acceptance prayer and everything, I went outside and I had a phone call with my mom, about my childhood that I always thought she knew about. But to find out she never knew, and accepting that Christ literally gave me that power to have that conversation.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
No.
But that also was I told my story a little bit before that, but that was where I became free to be able to tell my story and to become more comfortable in telling my story. And even still, I've been telling my story for over 2 years, and I still get emotional with it. So it's just those things that really it gave me that freedom of moving forward, and it gave me the belief that even in the moments where I start stressing out, like in that post that I did for the tires, and even before that, I blew out a tire climbing a mountain, and I was 100 miles away from a bike shop. I would get this panic attack, that initial like thought, like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And then like fairly quickly, and it's gotten better over time, is it'll all work out. God's got a plan for this. This happened for a reason. Even if I don't know what it is, even if it's the fact that I crashed my bike and, you know, ended up riding with a guy for a month because I crashed. And it was some of the best riding that I've done with a guy, and the longest person that has rode with me on my whole journey. So there was all these little things that, you know, I wish I didn't crash, but, you know, in the long run, it was a bigger purpose and reason for it. Yeah. And so that's what really, that's where my faith is with it. And, you know, and my, my belief is, you know, is to love everybody and respect everybody for who they are. And, you know, especially right now, we're getting in this country, we're in a huge political side of things, getting ready for that. And something that I don't agree with either, which is a bonus, but for me, I suppose, because I can get along with both sides, I get along with all sides, and I can get along with all faith. I call myself a Christian. I just want people to have a higher power.
Yeah.
You know, if that is whatever it is, ultimately in my belief, we're all believing in the same power. It's just, we call them different names.
Yeah, I agree, man. I agree. And yeah, these are weird times. I went on a rant on a podcast about the whole thing of you know, the human experience is something we all share, the good, the bad, the ugly. And if there's ever a time we need some kindness and some understanding and maybe step away from a screen and actually, because it's amazing how interactions can change when you're face to face talking to somebody. You mentioned being in the Navy. I was in the Air Force, and I had the opportunity to travel all over the world, and even on my 9 to 5 job. And it's crazy to be around people that, you know, the news or a history book is going to tell you that this person is an enemy, right? Just because of whether faith they believe in or what country they're from. And then you start talking to them and you start to realize, man, they're the same thing. They want to be happy. They want to see their kids prosper. They want the basic needs met just like anybody else. And if we could do more of that, I think we would be in a much better place, because that's what it's about, right? It's just connecting.
Yeah, that's exactly what it's about.
I was done.
All right. Yeah, no, that's exactly what it's about. It's just about connecting in any way possible. And even if you don't agree with it, because, like, for instance, on my journey, I've spent time with a lot of people, a lot of good people, even if to other people they're bad people, I guess I would say. You know, a person that, you know, flies the Confederate flag, for instance, can be considered a bad person for the beliefs that they believe in. But, you know, just being able to have a conversation with them and talking with them and not agreeing with everything that they say sometimes, but at least understanding it and being willing to have that conversation and accept it for what it is. You know, I'm not, you know, my job isn't to make you believe what I believe.
Yeah.
You know, my job and all our jobs really is to come up with our own belief. And if you find other people that believe in that, then you connect with them. And if you don't believe what other people believe, you can still at least accept it and move on and continue your beliefs.
Yeah.
So, and you know, for me, that's what's really powerful about this journey is I've stayed with people that, you know, some of the nicest people that I've ever like taken me into the home are convicts. You know, people have done bad things in their past, but, you know, they appreciate just that time that they had to suffer or deal with whatever they dealt with or did, and come out of that as a, you know, just providing to other people and helping out, even if it's something small. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, hey, here's a couch to sleep on. I don't have anything else.
Yeah. Yeah. I you know, I found even through the like a 12-step program that you meet people from all different realms, right? And you start to realize that maybe you didn't have the same repercussions that they did. And a lot of that might just be luck. You know what I mean? Like, you know, they might have just, you might have been in the exact same state they've been in before doing the exact same things, but they got caught or there was an accident or something happened along the way. And if when you start to realize that whole stigma of like, hey, this guy's a convict kind of starts going away, and you might have a little more empathy because your circumstances can change real quick and you can be in that exact same boat. So, your journey, man, that is, if not only you spreading the awareness, this suicide awareness, but the connections you're making with people across the country, that's got to be a pretty amazing experience within itself.
If I wasn't even doing it for cause, just for the experiences with the people that I've interacted with or spent time with or whatever, make this journey that amazing already. A cause that I'm near and dear to myself, you know, and unfortunately something that I actually haven't said is I've lost 37 people that I've known in my lifetime to suicide. And 11 of those people happen to be veterans. So, you know, we all, that's something that I enjoy, is finding that I found purpose. You know, 3 years ago when I started bicycling, it wasn't something that I looked for purpose at that time. It wasn't something that I saw as a life-saving tool for me. but that's exactly what it is. It's giving me the ability to share my story. It's giving me the ability to know that I can do this type of travel and enjoy it. It's given me the ability to appreciate all the little things. Something that I tell people all the time is I am at the poorest of my life I've ever been, and I have the least amount of materialistic things I've ever owned in my entire life. But I actually feel richer than I ever have in my entire existence.
Wow, that's deep, man. It's deep.
And it's all because of the interactions that I have, the people that I've encountered, the experiences that I've had. But if I had given up for that fourth time, I wouldn't have any of this. And that's my message to people is, don't give up. We already have we already have an expiration date. That's one thing that we all already have. We just don't know that date labeled like we do on our meats. But even if you're not a believer of God, we all are going to die at some point. So don't rush it. Enjoy life as you have it. And if it's not the situation that you want, make it the situation you want. And sometimes that's really hard, but one little thing at a time, one task at a time, one breath at a time, whatever it is, it's one at a time. And you can reach those goals. So that's, for me, it's a life-saving thing, and it's given me so much purpose, and I'm thankful for it.
Yeah, dude, I'm honored that you even agreed to come on here and tell this story, man. Because it is your journey has been, just to hear it has been really moving, and I don't know you, and I'm proud of what you're doing. I'm proud to even have such a small part of it to even let you tell your story here, man. If people want to support you and they want to support you on your journey financially, how do they go about doing that?
So they can go to my website. If they want to support me directly, they can do it at donate.ridewithdanusa.com. But if they want to support my nonprofit, they can do that at opatmovement.com, OPAAT movement.com. I'm thankful that I get a lot of support, and especially when I need it the most. But my goal is to raise funds and to provide education to make suicide safe for communities. And we start with that through the STAR program.
All right, man. Listen, I don't want to impede on the next 17,000 miles. So I'm going to let you do your thing. But like I said, I'm honored to have you on. This has been a really cool experience. I encourage everybody that's hearing this to get on, support Dan, support his cause. And I'd love to see your story get out to more people.
I appreciate it, and I'm thankful for the opportunity.
All right, man. Be good. Be safe. Watch those East Coast drivers, and dude, we're gonna keep track of you, man. I know you've got a map on the website, so we can see where you're going, and I definitely want to keep everybody posted on what's going on with your story, and let me know when you hit San Diego.
Absolutely.
All right, Dan.
Awesome.
All right, huge thanks to Dan. Please, everyone, follow this man's journey. See what he's doing. Offer up some money, maybe. He's in need. His cause is in need. Yeah, even if you can put him up in a campsite, just do something, man. Yeah, I mean, how somebody can't stand behind what this man is doing. I'm going to think that maybe they hadn't listened to the podcast and they just jumped to this part. That's it for me, man. Please like, subscribe, pass this one on. This one might be important. There might be somebody in your life that needs to hear what this man has to say. And if you want, leave a review. All right, that's it. I'll catch you next week. Later.